Last week, I had the opportunity in stream to interview Richard, the game director and founder of Techtonica, asking your questions and getting all of them answered. And today, I'm going to summarize the stream whilst playing the unedited alpha gameplay the Techtonica's community managers, Jazz and Joey, showed off during the interview. I'll also make this as concise as possible, but if you want to see the whole interview, the VOD is on my second channel. I'll place a link below. It covers the first hour and a half of the VOD. Obviously, if you are excited for Techtonica, make sure to subscribe here, as I'll be sure to follow this up with more information as we receive it. And before we jump into all of the questions about the game, I should mention this is very information heavy, so do forgive me. I hope you enjoy the content. I hope you enjoy the questions and answers. So the first thing that I wanted to know was some background as to the team. Now, the project started 2 to 2.5 years ago with just Richard on board, and Firehose now has 17 people working on the game, as well as a couple of other members that they outsource work to. Now, the gameplay you're seeing right now is done by Joey and is where we will be starting in the alpha. We'll be leaving a facility where the main tutorial area is, and you can see that now. You can also see that Joey is heading to the main computer, which is the kiosk, which is where we can find our tech tree. You'll then see Joey harvest enough resources to start producing the drills for automating the process, and this particular section of the game and the alpha is directed by Sparks, which is the first cube that you encounter, which along with yourself has amnesia for some reason, leaving you to figure out who the both of you are. And though this is the start of the story, you'll find yourself discovering more about the both of you as you expand your factory, but don't expect the whole story to be released in the alpha. An interesting note from Richard was that though this game has become a factory game with inspiration drawn notably from Factorio, the game was also greatly inspired by Subnautica, and was originally a survival exploration game. At the time, Firehose was also working on an excavator style game and a 2D factory game, which all ended up merging together into this project, and they're hoping that Techtonica will pique the interest of players who wouldn't normally check out factory games and maybe find Techtonica more of a gateway to other factory games that we love, such as, Factorio and Satisfactory for one. Now, the art style of the game is highly inspired from the likes of Machine and Kruger. It's very diesel punk and post-World War II Soviet-inspired designs. And a lot of this also came from the artist, I hope I get the name right, Ian McHugh. Let's move on to a bit of information about the alpha. So obviously with the alpha coming up in July, people are excited to get their hands on the game, but it will be releasing it in waves. This will be done to help manage the feedback from players whilst also getting fresh eyes on the alpha as it updates. And though multiplayer is confirmed, they're interested in releasing multiplayer to the alpha a little bit later on. So you're going to have to wait for that wave to be released. And whilst we're on the subject of multiplayer, they do plan to add character customization to differ you from other players, but that is something that they'll be looking at doing after full release. Also, if you are interested in getting involved with the alpha, make sure to check out their Discord, the link is below, and remember you can wishlist this game on Steam. It's also important to remember that the footage that we're currently seeing is very early alpha, and a lot of the assets and animations are just temporary placeholders for the time being. And with that out the way, let's check out the gameplay. Straight off the bat, you'll notice that there's a lot of plants in game. The yellow ones are called the Kindle vines, I think I've got that right, which can be harvested for fuel, and they also give seeds, which will allow you to automate the production of plants in planters and subsequently fuel your early game. The caverns will be much more vibrant with life for the alpha, as they've actually been working on the terrain systems and have been able to add more vegetation since then. And when it comes to harvesting resources, the ore veins are dug out with the voxel system. So with the voxel system, cavern rock is pretty easy to break down. You can do that with a pick, but the ore veins do vary in density and size and will take about 40 hours for a single miner to extend out to its full capacity and harvest all of the ore in its own vicinity. And this doesn't pan from left to right, it's just straight in front of it. So larger veins may require you to use a lot more miners, and they're probably going to take hundreds of hours to fully harvest. Oh, most notably, the large veins are also in the deeper caves that you can find, and there you'll be able to dig out the dirt from all around them. Don't expect them to just smash into pieces like in Valheim, as there will be millions of minerals per vein. It's just not feasible to make them all release at once onto the map without crashing the game. Automation is also a key element of this game, but the machinery isn't particularly large as of right now, but the team do have a lot of things planned for the future, including plenty of new machinery, which I'm looking forward to seeing. And when erasing the machines will be refunded similar to building in Factorio. So rather than the resources required to build them being refunded like we have in Satisfactory, you'll actually get a refunded smelter or miner, for example. And by the sounds of it, this also allows us the option to automate the production of buildings such as smelters in the factory, which is pretty cool. The erasing tool that we will be using will allow us to drag a box across and delete multiple items, or individual items should we wish, and the team are considering a blueprint system for the game, but it won't be part of the initial release or alpha, but they do apparently have a fun spin on how the blueprint system would work, which they can't wait for us to see. One thing that comes to my mind when thinking about factories is logic. And I would love to have logic in my factories, and they do have plans for it, but this is another feature that they're planning potentially later down the line, definitely not at launch. As it currently stands in the alpha, there's a small amount of base building planned currently in game, but they want to expand on this in the future, covering base building, decoration, and customization, but again, it won't be available at first. When building floors, they do have a zooping system to make building easier, and all power will be done via these foundations. This keeps the game cleaner, and a note on power generation, will also have to make use of an underground river and water wheels in order to power our factories, but they won't allow us to manipulate water. For now, any voxels that are connected to an underground river will not be breakable. That way you're not going to flood your factory. So it might actually be cool to dig everything out but the river out of the whole map, so you just have this suspended river in your game. In regards to the machines, we will have multiple upgrades for them, such as miners, which at first require fuel, but later you'll be able to have powered miners rather than just burner fuel ones. And the inserters that you do see currently in game do not need power in order to run, and will only be straight inserting. And there'll also be different types of inserters later into the game, but they haven't announced what types just yet. When it comes to splitting and merging resources on belts, they will automatically set up a merger or splitter when you merge or divert conveyors from a line, and these conveyors currently only snap to the lowest item that they can reach. That means that you can build vertically with them, but you can't place them in midair, for example. But they will add something that will give us a bit more freedom later on if you want to just build vertically. I hope you are finding all this information okay to deal with and not overbearing. But moving on, with us having the opportunity to build sprawling factories and dig out resources, there's definitely a need, in my eyes at least, for vehicles, whether that's for transportation or what would be really cool, excavation. And there are plans at least for vehicular travel, but this won't be for the initial release of the game. But we will have a zipline system, which you may have seen in a trailer, as well as a cable cart system for transporting resources across large areas for your factories. But building a factory and using vehicles is only useful if you have the right tools for the job. And currently we have a hover pack, which has been confirmed. You can see it later in the video, similar to Satisfactory. There is also a map unlock called the Echo Sketch. This is a tool which allows you to see the caverns that are around you to aid with your exploration and digging out rocks to get to the different caverns. There's also the Mole, which is great for terrain manipulation, and we'll be able to remove dirt as well as place dirt down later in the game. Also, the Mole will not be able to dig out minerals, so you can clean minerals, you can remove the dirt from around them, but you can't actually dig minerals out with the Mole. To brighten up the dark caverns, we also have the headlamp, and there are also light sticks that you can place down and worker light balloons. And the inventory space is an interesting one. So currently we're not limited by slots or weight, as they don't want us to feel limited when exploring or building. And there's also currently no way to delete resources. So I can see myself using a lot of storage bins for storing stuff that I may not need just yet. And on the subject of tools, if you're a content creator, they will give us a way to remove the UI in-game to make our videos clean, but they will not add, or at least don't plan to add, any other options specifically for content creator tools such as flying through the terrain. There will also be no official mod support, as it would require them to rebuild the code base from the ground up, but the game is made in Unity, so supposedly it should be relatively easy for modders to create mods for the game, and they also do want to encourage it and look forward to seeing what people do with the game. The other tool that they have in game for us to use is the analyzer. Now this will allow us to unlock machinery in the research tree, but you'll need to automate research cores in order to allocate their data space for unlocking the new items and recipes in the tech tree. Sounds like a lot of work, but I'm interested to see how it works in game. Debatably, one of the most important features of this world will be the map, and this particular map is handcrafted. This is done to curate the experience for the player, which I really like. I like that they're thinking about that, and will also aid them in creating a narrative and pushing the exploration and discovery elements of the game, whilst making the factory building elements as fun as possible. So for them, having a handcrafted world was the best way for them to do this. They also see that there is replayability in procedurally generated maps, and they're looking for ways in which they can add some procedural generation to some elements in the game for replayability, but again, don't expect this anytime soon. And knowing it is handcrafted, we know that the current size of the level is about 900 meters by 900 meters horizontally, with 300 to 400 meters vertically, with multiple caves for us to explore. But the alpha will be slightly smaller, but still considerable in size, supposedly. You can also dig up, as we mentioned, vertically, but there isn't any plan on us reaching the surface for the alpha. But they did mention that they're going to keep stum about the full release. They mentioned that exploration and discovery is really important to them, and they want to merge this into the game loop, which will be helped with the analyzer, which I mentioned will allow you to unlock items within the tech tree. So you may have to explore facilities dotted around the world to find new tools, and don't worry, this is a Zen game, so there will be no fauna waiting around the corner to eat you. In fact, there's no death in the game except for a respawn feature if you get stuck or fall into lava, for example. And the reason that there is no fauna is that they're incredibly resource heavy, which they'd rather invest in other parts of the game, which I think is pretty fair. Also, just a note on lava. So they count the whole level as a single biome, but the biome will have a diverse mix of plants depending in which part of the map you're in. Richard also mentioned that they'd like to add more biomes after the release for different depths of the world, which actually suggests that we may have new levels for us to play around with after its full release. Perhaps it's an update or potentially future DLC, but I am just speculating here. I'm taking the words and patching them together. Again, if you are interested in more content on Techtonica, make sure to subscribe to my channel, and also let me know in the comments what you're most excited to see in this game. They then went on to talk about whether there'll be different difficulties in game. They don't have anything planned as of yet, but potentially after the full release they may implement something in regards to that. There'll also be an achievement system for Steam at full release, and there is a quest system in-game to help aid the player early in-game, but kind of after that you're free to go as you like. And as for when the game will be fully released, they're keeping pretty stum about that as well. But that's all we have. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to all of our amazing supporters, most notably our Solar Eclipse patrons, The Calamity, Cerebral Tag, James Irwin, Firefless, and Jerry 2, as well as our Lunas, Dixie Chris, Lord of July, and Ben, as well as our Blood Moon of the day, which today is Papa Snoozy. Until next time, guys, as always, ciao for now.